Hello, if you're watching this video, that means I was right about the One Piece flag being used for corruption. And what I mean by that is this video is going to be released, and only going to be released, if that means that the One Piece flag is being justified for not just corruption, but terrorism, and specifically terrorism. Not just any kind of corruption, but terrorism corruption, okay? And the title will be how the One Piece flag will be justified, is justified for terrorism, is being used to be justified for terrorism. And I do not justify terrorism, okay? It is not justifiable. Terrorism is awful. Terrorism is bad. Everybody knows that you shouldn't really be supporting terrorism, okay? And don't let those people who are actually terrorists use that as an excuse to go, oh, you don't support the One Piece flag, you must be a terrorist. Because I will have the comments off this video. I will have the remixing off this video. Because I know trolls, I know people who are actually from real terrorist groups, will try to use this as an excuse to justify the crimes they commit to people. Okay, I don't care where in the world you're from. I don't even care if you live where I live. You gotta understand something. Terrorism is bad, right? Terrorism is not something you should be getting involved with. And why am I mentioning this? Because the One Piece flag, yeah, the One Piece flag from the anime, One Piece. The flag that you saw in the fucking thumbnail. That flag, yeah, that One Piece flag. If this video ever gets released, then that means it is being used for terrorism. Okay? It is being used to justify terrorism. Alright? We haven't reached that level yet. But if this video gets released, then that means we have. Alright? That means we have. Now you might look at it and go, how could it be used to justify terrorism? Well, I explained in my other video. Basically, they could see, let's say there's a corrupt government, right? Let's say a corrupt country for whatever reason. Just for a random example, no offense to anybody from this country, I'm just giving an example for what could happen. Say you live in a country like Nigeria, okay? That country in Africa, Nigeria, alright? That they have a flag, they have a people, they have a land, they live on a continent, they're of, Nigerians are of Nigeria, sure. Okay, let's take that. Let's say this government gets corrupt, like so corrupt that people just are like forced to acknowledge it. Like this government, this country or whatever. Like, yeah, there could be corruption in Nigeria right now, but I'm just saying, for example, let's say in the year, I don't know, 2026 or something happens or whatever, and they become like really, really, and I mean really corrupt. You know who could try to justify even more corruption, having a government that's even way more corrupt? These people who are using a One Piece flag, because they're like, oh, I'm from the same generation as you. I'm Generation Z. They could actually be Generation Z, by the way. And they could use that and say, hey, we're using the One Piece flag. We're protesting. So therefore, we're the good guys. And then those protesters could turn into its own terrorist group. Could organize and turn into its own terrorist group. And I know Nigeria is such a random example, at least for this conversation, but I'm just giving an example to show you. They could be like, hey, this government is corrupt, and so they're like, let's get rid of our corruption with the supposed non-corrupt government. They'll say it in their own special way to make it, say, oh, we're non-corrupt, oh, we're we're anti-fascist, we're anti-communist, we're anti-Nazi, we're anti this group, anti that group, we're anti-capitalism or something. And they'll put that down your throat, And at first it might not seem like nothing, but in the future, if you're watching this video, you know that that is definitely going to be the case, that they are going to just ruin your life. All right? And then you know what happens? Once they get, these people are going to get into power. They're going to be some of the most corrupted governments. New generation corruption, not old generation. Now, they might get rid of corruption in the old school way, but they're going to have so much corruption in the new school way that they're going to have to probably label it as a new form of corruption, you know? Like how they did with the Jews, and how that eventually got called anti-Semitism because of how strong it became. Things like that. It's just for example, you know? And I just hope this One Piece flag never gets used that way. But given my generation, not guaranteed. Definitely ain't guaranteed, okay? And I just know that there's probably going to be somebody reacting to this video that is probably going to use it and abuse it to justify their corruption. Okay? I do not justify those people who commit crimes, alright? Who commit those terrorist actions, alright? Or they'll label you as the terrorist because you didn't support their One Piece flag movement. So you gotta be really careful, okay? I don't care what you are, who you are, alright? Murder is not a good thing. Genocide is not a good thing. Ethnic cleansing is not a good thing, regardless of which side you're on. Xenophobia, racism, sexism is not a good thing. Classism is not a good thing. Ageism is not a good thing. And all these things, all these bad things, will go into these groups. And right now you might think, oh, no, but they support this or they support that. It doesn't matter. If they're on the true bad side of history, they will become the true bad side of history, okay? Because the people who make the biggest part of history, or make history that is the most evil people, will generally say similar stuff along the lines of, we want to be on the right side of history, or we're on the right side of history, you know, somewhere along those lines. Or some sort of similar version of, we're on the right side, or we're on the correct side of history, you know? So if you're watching this video, then unfortunately, and I do really mean unfortunately, Gen Z terrorist groups are now using this flag, this One Piece anime flag, as an excuse to justify your death, to justify your close friends and family's death, or someone you know that has close friends and family, alright? They'll use that to justify anything, really, you know? Taking away your freedom of speech, taking away your right to eat food, take your way to eat water, take away your right to exist, take away your right to be allowed to exist. It doesn't matter if you're, you know, an American like me, an atheist American like me, or if you're some, like, Hindu Muslim or something over in Afghanistan. Or, say, for example, you're in South Sudan, all the way over in South Sudan or something. Or you're in places like China or India or Poland or France or England or Brazil or Peru or Canada, US, and Mexico. You know, things like that. Or Australia or Antarctica. Wherever you are, I guess, including the penguins in those researchers that are at those penguins, you know. Well, anyway, if you're watching this, don't try to commit crime, okay? And if what you're doing is crime, well, then try to figure out things from that. Trying to not to become the very thing that you're trying not to be, I don't want you going down that route. I don't want myself going down that route. So, in conclusion, this flag, if this video gets released, this One Piece flag will be used and is used for terrorism. And I don't know how long this will last. I don't know if this will go through many generations. But yeah, this video is only going to be released for emergency purposes. So who knows? Maybe this video will never be released. Or it probably will, given this generation. Anyway, that's all I gotta say. And yeah, just remember, and at least try to fight for your freedom. And have a good day, maybe. Or a good night. Anyway, yeah, bye.